Hello and welcome back to your weekly dose of motivation, brought to you by the Motivating Force Podcast. You're listening to Josue, an aspiring Marine Corps officer who is finishing up ROTC and working towards his bachelor's in the criminal justice field, and myself, Justin, a motivational speaker who's always excited to share new ideas and topics with you. We're both highly motivated individuals who love to question everything and share some rather unique viewpoints with all of our listeners.
This week, we're going over the controversy of whether or not video games are bad for you. Seeing how last week was an important week for the video game community, with the release of next-gen consoles and all, we're going to be talking about some key points to help you determine if you should go crazy for them this holiday season or not. So let's get this fire lit
and get motivated.
Alright everybody, so we're back again talking about video games and if they're good for you. Now, we've all been raised in households where I'm sure your parents have talked to you and told you that video games are bad for your eyes. You sit too close to the TV, you're going to go blind. They're going to give you carpal tunnel because your hands are always cramped up on the controller or your keyboard and mouse, depending on what platform you're gaming on. You're going to start hearing things because you're not constantly listening to the video games in your headset all day. You're going to play too much and you're going to have bad hygiene because you're never going to take a shower. You're going to overeat because you're just going to be eating junk food, right? These are the things that people are used to hearing growing up when you just want to play Nintendo for a couple hours, right? Sound familiar to you, Justin?
Yeah, 100%, man. As you're saying that, everything going through my head is, sit up, stop being so close to the screen, push the monitor back. It's all too familiar with me.
And, I mean, the same for me because I would just play PlayStation or Xbox growing up all the time. And I could see it now that it could get excessive because I could just go outside, ride the bike around the neighborhood. But that's another thing that I wanted to point out is that when I was doing the research on seeing what these studies say, quote unquote, is bad for you for video games, a lot of it narrows down to the problem is that you can get addicted to the video game. It's not that the video game itself is the problem. It's that if you spend too much time on it, you start wasting your day, you're just going to become addicted, just like being a drug addict or just being an alcoholic.
Yeah, I mean, on top of the addictions, though, like you said, man, and it's more about the individual than it is the video game.
Yeah.
And as far as constantly getting scolded for sitting up and not having my eyes so close to the screen, joke's on me, man. Half of my exercise routine is about fixing my posture and my shoulders and my neck.
Yeah.
So there is obviously some deep-rooted connection there with how much time I spend in a chair. Although that is not necessarily video game related, this is also office related.
Yeah, it's like your personal habit that you had when participating in said video game. It's not that the video game taught you to have bad posture or to sit that close to the video game. It's not the video game's fault. Because a lot of this controversy that we hear, especially in this time, is that video games make kids violent. They're the cause of all these school shootings. They're the cause of so much violence in our world because of these first-person shooters. Or you think Mario has a lot to do with this?
Yeah, man. Those, just jumping on those mushrooms really, really made me reconsider things in high school.
Donkey Kong or Bowser is definitely like the administration in your school. So they're the bad guys. You have to go shoot them, right? Anyway, those are all things that you hear from people that are just, I don't want to say like not well informed of what the video game community can do for people. Because there's so many studies on the actual benefits that you get from playing video games, and it doesn't have to just be Mario or Call of Duty or like these shooting games or World of Warcraft because you're a PC player, unfortunately.
Yeah, man. Part of the only master race that's not a bad thing to say. That's the PC master race, as it's called in the gaming community.
Well, it might be a bad thing to say for all these people getting the PS5s now because it was just released last week, so you might have some competition on that one.
Yeah, until next month when the 3080 Ti's come out, and we're a step ahead, as always.
As always. But back to like the benefits of what video games can actually do for you. Because there's the whole violence thing. There's the gender stereotyping in games like Grand Theft Auto. Benefits that you can actually get from that. I have a short list here of 10 good things that pointed out. You get some cognitive brain functions that are improved because of video games. And these are also in children, young adults, and adults. So these affect all age groups.
Yeah, do you want to go into that a little bit there? That seems like a pretty hardy topic.
Well, yeah, let me get through the 10 first.
Okay, all right, yeah, let's do it.
So number 2, coordination. Number 3, problem-solving skills. You can already tell. So number 4, enhances memory. Number 5, attention and concentration. Number 6, improves brain speed, which you don't really think of when you think of kids sitting in front of a video game screen, huh?
In a way, I mean, to me that makes sense because we grew up on the traditional shooters like Call of Duty, and then now you have these kids who are playing Fortnite where you need to build a mansion and shoot another person at the same time, and they're able to do so many more tasks at one time than like what we can do. You know what
I'm saying like especially that person.
That's that brain speed.
No, you think of the kid that's sitting in front of the TV doing all those things, and you think of that the look on their face. So it's like, oh, that doesn't look intelligent, is where I'm going.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Number 8, social skills, believe it or not. Number 9, obviously it's a stress relief for a lot of people. 10, healthy brain stimulation.
Okay. I'm going to get on you really hard about the social skills there as far as you having that as a benefit, so be ready.
All right. You want to just pick and choose some some benefits and we'll go into it?
All right. I mean, are you ready to get hassled this early into the show?
Give it. So social skills, right? That's the first one you want to pick?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so we can talk about this one when it comes to games like Call of Duty, Warzone. It's a big one. I think one of the top games right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of communication has to go into that to be able to win successfully and often, does it not?
But that's not social to me. That's not a social skill. You're talking about communication and coordination with other people. So to me,
but that's what the social skill is implying, that it's the communication with that team, with that group mentality that you're improving on those skills that you can then take to real life aspects as you get older.
Okay. I see. Okay. So I can see the applicable side of that in real life when you're working in smaller teams, right?
Yeah.
Your coordination with them, your communication with them will be good. But as far as like social skills go, my concept of that off the bat is like when you talk about like being antisocial, so just a public sense of your social skill diminishes because being around a lot of people isn't something you're familiar with. You're always working with a small tight-knit group when you're playing video games and you're not seeing anybody in real life. So being around a lot of people, being out in a public environment becomes a lot harder for you.
Okay, let me get on you with this point. I have right here leadership and strategy that I wanted to make a clear and decisive point on social skills because that's obviously what I'm going for. But I have it down because certain genres of games reward and encourage leadership traits, providing for communities like securing their safety, etc. Researchers have noted that players can display a correlating motivation in their real-world career goals. Improvising in a game can also translate into being faster on your feet when an office crisis pops up.
Okay.
So the same thing that it's going to be in a group of people, but because of that communication in that team, you're able to become that leader. It's helped me personally within my group of friends when we play Warzone. I was usually the one that just follows people around, and now I'm the one just saying like, we're going here, we're doing this.
Yeah, I mean, decision making and all that's great. I do see leadership potential from it, because even that's across the board, right? In the shooters, which you're more familiar with, and like the MMOs, like World of Warcraft, more common, so right,
yeah,
that I play, there's a lot of leadership going on there too. And I can understand that. But again, that's still... But we're still in MMOs, talking a group, though. We're still in a group setting.
Okay, right? Then how about your MMOs that you're in giant clans or guilds where you have 200 plus people constantly talking, chatting, interacting?
Misconception, bro. Clans are usually about 20 to 40. That's really the limit. So as far as like an office floor goes, it's equivalent there, but... As far as leadership, if you are in a leadership position in clans, as far as MMOs go, your connection's still limited to the people in your clan and then other leaders. So, of course, there's a big leadership and ownership
And
role that goes into
networking.
place. Yeah, games, MMOs get very, very political, in a good way. So you get a good simulation for that when it comes to the real world, but I think it still gives a false sense of confidence. And this might be just me reflecting off of myself here, but you get that confidence that comes in the decision making and helping people through the gaming experience and whatnot. And then in real life, it becomes a lot harder because you have to be around 40 or 50 people, and having those people actually around you, staring at you, waiting for you to say something, it flips a different switch in your brain. You know what I mean?
Well, then that's going to be very not individual. It's going to be very targeted.
I mean, I could be a one-off child with that, you know?
Yeah, I'm saying like that's not going to happen to every person that's playing video games, that they're going to be picked out in a group of 40 people to say something.
Yeah, but speaking specifically on social skills, that's what I see as a lack of a benefit. That's all.
Okay, then moving on then. Hit me with another one. Because I still strongly believe that it can help, certain games can help individuals with social skills. And I was looking at it more leadership and strategy and how to be more confident because you're used to that environment. Or just random situations that occur in video games where you have to make a quick decision.
Yeah, I mean, hands down, I give it to decision making and all that. Obviously, research through the years is just really, in a way, glorifying video games, and rightfully so.
Well, because they've always had the negative stereotype associated with it since the beginning of video games.
Yeah, so
you're always looked at as lazy or not doing anything with your life when you're just playing video games. But that's what the whole point of this episode is, that we're bringing out the benefits, and that's actually a positive thing.
Yeah, and I'm trying to play devil's advocate here. I do want to get into as much of the bad side of it as possible on my end, because we do get told it's bad all the time, and then of course people want to research that, like, well, why is this bad? And then we can't find anything, right? So as far as the research goes, everything's so great about it. So I did want to play devil's advocate here because I do spend a lot of time playing video games, and I do want to research what could be wrong with that, you know?
Well, that's what I'm saying. A lot of the things that I saw, since you said like looking up on studies, is a lot of it was rooted in addiction to video games.
Right.
The addiction aspect is the problem, not that the game itself is the problem. So if you're worried about anything, I would just be concerned with if you're making video games more important than other things in your life, other goals that you have.
Yeah, don't fall on the slippery slope of
addiction.
The time-consuming effects of video games, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I could see that. You know, there is... The bigger problem I saw with it, too, away from addiction, is that, of course, video games are formulated in a way to reward the player.
Yeah.
Always. Then even from the most casual to the most hardcore game, it's all about when you get those rewards. After how much time, after how much skill set you have to put into it, the learning curve determines if the game's casual or hardcore. So the issue that I could see is, you know, casual gamers will spend 15, 20 minutes a day on even like a phone game and get a lot of dopamine from that.
Yeah.
Because
especially
those games
the
are
Candy
designed
Crush
for really fast reward pace, right? Yeah. So the issue that I find, even for casual gaming, getting off of addiction here and talking about the players that only play 30 minutes a day, is that ultimately you can still be making a choice to run away from real world problems.
Yeah.
Even for just a 15-minute quick release. And you're not actually solving any real world problems that you're having. You're just getting your fix of happiness.
And I like that you brought this up because I made that little note that I didn't want you to see before.
Yeah.
And this is a question I wanted to get your genuine opinion on this episode. Whether or not social media itself is a video game. Because we think of like Angry Birds and what's the other one? Candy Crush, the farm one for your phone. Yeah. Like those are video games that are on your phone. But the way you just described that situation is what a lot of people do. IRL, for example, with Instagram, Facebook, and constantly like checking that, looking for the notifications, that dopamine release to see who liked the picture. Is there any new pictures? You know, did anybody see something that's catchy? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, and in her case too, it gets really hard because, as she does manage our social media accounts here for the motivating force, and it's like staying in that business mindset of like following the notifications and things to make sure our outreach is growing and that, we're not getting any negativity back or criticism, things that we need to evaluate on, and just constantly overall managing the whole page. But then seeing all the followers come in, notifications come in, and having to fight that battle.
Yeah,
that can be real tough.
Real quick. At podcast TMF on Instagram and on Facebook at The Motivating Force. But yeah, getting back to the point, I could see, like she was saying earlier, that she can get caught up in that. And that's the same thing with the people that can get addicted to the Candy Crush or like the 30-minute a day kind of games that you're talking about. And those are casual gamers, but they're trying to get away from the stress or just the empty space in the elevator. Instead of having small talk, you just pull out your phone and start scrolling.
I'm going to give you an answer that you're not going to like.
Uh-oh.
Because it's not going to answer your question, okay? So when you ask me if social media is a game, I'm going to give you this correlation with it. It's picking your poison, okay? So what I mean by this is that if you choose to smoke cigarettes or if you choose to drink beer every day, it's the same effect. It's the same similarities. It's doing the same thing to you all the way across the board, but it's still a different poison to pick. So social media is 100% like video games, but it's still its own category.
So it's a vice, and video games are also a vice. It's just, it's not going to be categorized as a video game. I think I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Because vices are like smoking cigarettes and drinking, so it's the same, kind of pulls you away from the situation.
There's still one thing, though, that does separate social media from gaming that I definitely keep them in separate categories for, and that's you do not get the same real life benefits from social media as you do from gaming. Like you said, you have these 10 lists here. There is nothing on social media that's going to help improve your cognitive brain function.
I was going to say that that's a good point because it's the same, but negatively.
Yeah, it's the same negative traits and it's the same reward system, but the benefits you get from social media are completely different than video games.
Yeah.
So I cannot put them in the same category.
Okay.
But I like that question.
Yeah.
That's good.
I had this for a couple days now, just brewing, waiting to ask you.
Yeah. So is that satisfactory?
Yeah, it makes sense because, I was just thinking because of the dopamine release and all.
Okay, so getting away here from the dopamine portion of that topic.
What, was it not dope enough for you?
I wanted to get just a quick second in on some of these problems that you have. Okay, so we already, we're kind of overall theme here. We're already hitting this excessive playing, right? We're talking about all these negativities stem from addiction-based side effects of video games, and that has to do with the way they're formulated for the player. The stereotyping, I want to stay away from because I feel I'm going to hurt some feelings with that, It's like Assassin's Creed just came out with a new game.
Yeah.
Right? Valhalla just released. It's been 5 days in, and there's already a
surge of people complaining.
Yeah, let's go with that. There's a bunch of complaints because, some character descriptions might not fit the bill that makes every human being comfortable.
Yeah.
And,
I'm trying to help you edit like real time.
I appreciate that. But, it's like it's a video game. It's not real life. Don't make that connection. Don't tell me that this character description can't be something.
Yeah.
Can't be whatever they want it to be
the
because
character,
it can offend people because there's in the same exact time, right? The same game in Valhalla, they have those descriptions that people want to complain about, but at the same time, they already have like environmental breaking things where like you can edit your ship to have like rainbows and unicorns on it.
Yeah.
And it's like, because it's funny.
Yeah. I mean, I see where this could stem from too, because since it is, I don't want to say like a historical based game, it has a lot of its story based on history, right? It's based on Norwegian Vikings from, I don't know, what year is this based on?
Yeah.
Okay, good talk.
Good
Anyway,
talk.
you would think that they have to be historically accurate or like based on real life, as close to it as possible. But then you have that whole like fairy mystical side of it, that it is a video game. The character could have wings and a unicorn, like a horn sticking out of their forehead. You know,
Yeah.
like you said, you can have a Viking ship with rainbow sails. That's
Yeah.
not quite historically accurate.
No, that's a real problem coming into it today is, the group of sensitive people out there.
Yeah, but
And it's like,
that's what I'm
it's
saying.
a
They need to
video
see the
game.
line. They need to draw the difference of this isn't supposed to be 100% truth. Like, just have some fun with the video game. You don't like have to take everything to heart sometimes.
Yeah, if you're getting all your history lessons from a video game, I got some bad news for you, man.
Yeah, not going to go very well. But Assassin's Creed's very accurate when it comes to scale of things,
Yeah.
like the pyramids and origins. Anyway, but when I was putting down the problems of like gender stereotyping, racial stereotyping, I saw a lot of it come from games like Grand Theft Auto, where it's very, what's the word, masochist? Like like hookers walking down the street, and then you think any lady is just going to throw themselves on you in the video game. So then you start taking that as a child, because we all know 12-year-olds are the ones that play GTA for the most part. They start thinking that every random lady walking down the sidewalk is a hooker because that's all they see in the video game. Or the same thing where like you see all the thugs. I'm not going to say anything else. You're just going to see thugs and gangsters in the video game. And then you're going to start seeing just people hanging, like on the stairs in New York, just hanging out in the front yard. You're going to think that these are all gangsters, but then that's gender and racial stereotyping.
Okay.
Because you're used to seeing this from the video game, you're going to
So we're
start
talking about-
associating them.
Exactly. Association. That's what I was going to say. That's the word you're looking for here, right?
Yeah.
That impressions we're putting. But I think that's where these labels come in at, though, right? Like GTA is rated M for a reason. And it's not inherently because they're hookers on the street in the game and that you can go around and kill whoever you want and it's this lawless city type of deal.
You're holding a rocket launcher in your back pocket, and then, yeah, it's completely realistic.
Yeah. But it's not necessarily rated M because there's that going on. I think it's rated M because of that type of impressionability that it can cause on minors, like the 12 and 13-year-olds.
Yeah. I mean, it says that it's rated M because of those things, but I understand what you're saying. It's like,
Yeah,
subliminally, it's rated M because it's going to leave this impression on the kids, but they can't just come out and say that's the reason for it.
Yeah, like that's the long game for it. And it is ironic, though, because these M-rated games and whatnot are more popular with minors.
Yeah.
Right? You hear about Pokemon and
Minecraft.
What's the other one? Animal Crossing? Adults?
Only adults.
Only adults play these games, and it's like...
Or
and-
quote unquote adults.
Yeah. And of course you have, kids that play it,
Yeah.
and adults that play it, but the whole teenage segment, the M-rated games are dominated by the teenage segment.
Yeah.
And it almost seems like it's backwards, but what that puts in my head is, what are these kids sheltered from that they need it from these video games so bad, right? Because they're so enticed to these M-rated games. And it's like, because when you grow up, of course you're told don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal, all the basic, well, hopefully.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wait, they were? I wasn't. I'm kidding.
And we're told all these things, and then it's like you're 13 and, your options start coming up in the world a little bit more. And then you see these video games where it's like, hey, play this game where you can lie, cheat, and steal. Yeah. And you're like, well, yeah, let me do that because I can't do that in real life. It's almost like that passage into that, to do that virtually. But then as an adult, like for us to play those games, we don't see that appeal to it anymore.
Well, okay, so this is also a nature versus nurture conversation that we could have, right? Because a lot of it could be that, yeah, you're saying they're told not to do all these things, right? So then they're going to want to go do it, but in the video game where it's a safe place to do it, right?
Right.
Because they can't go out and do it because they actually have real consequences that will happen. But what if the parents aren't helicopter parents and they're not constantly telling them don't do all these things, right? So it's just normal. But then you have their friends from school, like children, which is what we're talking about. Their friends from school that tell them, hey, we're all going to be playing GTA or we're all going to be playing Call of Duty. You should play it with us. So then that's how they get ingrained into that system. It's not necessarily what's happening in the household is what I'm saying. It's like more community.
Yeah, I definitely think that it's more of that vacuum type of situation going on where like being the cool kid and all that, so it's like all the kids are growing up being told don't do these things with or without helicopter parents. So then the ones that do have the helicopter parents want to be exposed to it more. And it's like, oh, yeah, I played GTA and I killed all these hookers the other day, and then it's like you're cool for that, for whatever stupid misconceptions that teenagers have. And we don't, I guess, like, we find a problem with that. Like, as adults going into that community and we talk about video games being bad. And then this is where we talk about that exposure to violence and these negative things in the world. And we want to relate a young teenager playing GTA and killing hookers, and somehow we make a relation to that where he's going to grow up to kill hookers as an adult.
Yeah.
Like, is that what's going on?
It doesn't make a lot of sense.
No. That's the full come around on this point, I think, is that none of that makes sense where
you're just going to point your finger at one thing saying this is the reason why he did this. Yeah. Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Causation versus correlation. And I think there's no correlation. Because all these kids are playing these games, whether their parents want them to or not. I think these kids are playing those games. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And a lot of the people that you do hear that do those things, right? They tend to be what we call incels. Unfortunately, those are the ones that tend to be addicts, and they're the couch potatoes, and they're the ones not doing anything except playing video games all day.
Yeah.
Right? They're the ones taking it to that extreme. They're the ones that have that pent-up anger even before the video game.
Yeah, and then it's usually tied to traumas and abuse, right? Because you get that addiction for a reason, right? You're not in a nurturing household. Your parents are abusive or something, so you get away from it. You dive into these video games. You take this whole one-off chain and this one-off story, and then you tie it to everybody because that kid played video games, which was a consequence of his lifestyle, his environment.
Yeah.
And then we tied it to the video games, and it's like, well, no, you're pushing responsibility. It's called the parents didn't give a shit about him, and then
that's
nobody
exactly
else did either, so he went and shot up a school.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's easier to point the finger at the video game than it is to blame three people, the kid and the parents.
Yeah.
Just say, oh, all these video games are bad, so they're going to affect all kids like this, or all adults.
Crazy how we get into blame shifting with that. But as far as kids go, man, I think the general consensus, I want to say video games are good for children, right? As we start moving into this conversation, we get to the adults and more applicable things here. Concluding up on that, I think you should let your kids play whatever they want to play. Let them experience whatever they want to experience. And then you be the one to teach them the distinction between the two.
Yes, expose them to all the kinds of situations that video games have to offer. Because like we mentioned so many different games so far, they're all different.
Yeah.
And it's like you need that in your life. You need to be exposed to some violence. You need to be exposed to some fairy lands and Vikings and hookers on the street. Not gonna lie, like you can't just expect to shelter people from that and then put them out downtown Orlando for a night. You're gonna see a lot of crazy things out there that can wrap up like 5 different video games.
Yeah.
My dad plays video games regularly. I have some coworkers at work that play video games regularly. A lot of their reasoning behind it, I mentioned it briefly, that it's a stress relief for a lot of people. We were talking about how like it takes them away 15, 30 minutes going on your phone, just takes them away from real life problems. But I'm talking about the players a little bit more casual that play it 2 hours a night. Get your work done, come home, take a shower, eat some dinner. But there was also the aspect of memory and cognitive functions that I wanted to point out for older players. I have here that so-called brain games involving problem-solving, memory, and puzzle components have been shown to have a positive benefit on older players. In one study, just 10 hours of play led to increased cognitive functioning in participants 50 and older, and these cognitive functions lasted several years.
I agree with that, man. Video games are a simulation of whatever they want to be,
Yes.
right? So whether it's real life, whether it's Vikings,
Mm-hmm.
or
You're
shooters,
an Italian plumber running up some ladders to save a princess.
Yeah, whatever it is, it's a simulation, and there are things that naturally you're going to want to take from it.
Yes.
Being a human, being adaptable to everything that you do. When you play video games, you're going to adapt to whatever the scenario is, and it's going to help you. You're playing these brain games, you're getting these memory functions, these cognitive functions up, or you're doing a hell of a lot of multitasking in like MMOs where you have 4 or 5 things going on at one time, 4 hours at a time. A lot of management skill goes into that, and you will naturally get good at it the more time you put into it. And all that does is improve those abilities for the real world. Hands down, cannot argue with that.
Yeah, you said that one perfectly. I saw a rise in those little, those video games that are, advertised for older people, the ones that, not necessarily, the cards, that they're flipped over, you have to memorize which ones are put together, but the ones that make you think outside the box, you have to drag something off the screen, and that's the answer instead of just clicking the button. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
those
the clever,
Yeah, the little, brain box games. I don't know what they're called. But those, I noticed those help a lot of people as well. But then, like you were saying, you take into effect of FPS shooters, first person shooters for people like my dad. It helps him with that management of he's got all these different things coming at him. How is he going to distribute his shots effectively?
Yeah.
Realistically. But then there's also things to that extent of scanning your environment constantly in first person shooters, or I think in your top scrolls, the MMOs and stuff that you play. You have a lot of that scanning going on because you have a lot of clutter on your screen.
Yeah,
I know that.
You're waiting on things to come off of cooldown, so you have 20 or 30 skills on one side of your screen. You have everybody in your clan on another little overlay showing all their health, so you're making sure nobody's dead. You're making sure when your skills come up, when to use your next set of skills, while you're still interacting with other players and moving around.
Yeah, and that's something that I've always argued. That's probably been my main argument when people used to come up to me and tell me how bad video games are for my eyesight, because it's constantly helping me improve my eyesight. I grew up playing first-person shooters like Halo and Call of Duty and all those since I was younger, so I'm constantly scanning, looking in doorways and windows on a radar, at my weapon, at the ground. You don't know where people are usually hiding, but then I'll have real life situations where I come in and I scan a room, I point something out, and somebody's like, "How'd you notice that fast?" Oh, it's second nature. I'm used to scanning my environment all the time, that this is obvious, it's clear, it's right there to me. But then there's other people that I know that don't play video games, and it takes them a little bit to recognize that there's a problem in the room, or it improves driving for me because of that. Being able to scan helps me with that cognitive function.
Yeah, also the improvement of fast twitch fibers.
That's the word.
Yeah, those responses, when you get shot and your screen,
Goes
flashes
blurry.
red, and you get the one side that lights up a little more red, so that way you know what direction you're getting shot at. And in the matter of a second, you're registering that you've been hit
from the right,
where it is,
spin around,
target acquisition, and all this happens within a second.
Yeah.
Or you would hope so, because that's what makes you a good player. This is what improves that. And then you get that improved fast fiber twitch response.
Yeah, that higher sensitivity also.
And that applies to real life. That applies to driving. When somebody is swerving into your lane, you acknowledging that they're doing it, you looking in your mirror to see if you can get the next lane over without hitting somebody, or if you need to hit your brakes, and then making the decision to either swerve, slam on your brakes, hit the horn at the same time, and you want to do that all within a second.
Yeah.
Well, there was your practice playing Call of Duty.
There you
Imagine
go.
that.
Yeah, and my driving scenario would be things like My grandfather used to tell me, you don't brake for the person in front of you, brake for the person in front of the person in front of you.
Yes.
So me like scanning and seeing the red light pop up through the person, like the car in front of me, through their windows, seeing the person in front of their brake light up, then I start braking. That's also because of that whole scanning and the target acquisition that you were talking about, where normal people will just kind of brake when the person in front of them is starting to brake.
Yeah. No, that makes sense, man. I see that.
But since we're on that, my last benefit right here is the concentration and focus from video games because of that same fast twitch fibers that you were talking about. You're so focused on the video game. Like we have headsets now that we're always listening to footsteps, call outs, people talking. Like you have so much going on and it helps you multitask. Call back to our previous episode. The whole constantly evolving environment that you're exposed to in these video games and constantly hearing all these different things and seeing the landscape change. I think no matter what game you're playing, it's helped in a study that I found that it improved dyslexics and their reading comprehension because they're constantly evolving landscapes, where dyslexic people can't read because they get things all jumbled up. The concentration and focus that you have in these video games actually help you focus when it just comes to simple things like reading for us.
Okay. Oh, so they're actually seeing some noticeable increase in that?
Yeah.
People dyslexic. Okay.
Which I thought that was pretty monumental because I think like 3 or 4 people that are actually dyslexic. I know some that are like extremes that really can't read, but I know some that are kind of like every once in a while they'll mix up a word or two.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I actually did not know about that. That's pretty cool. I think we've hit a lot on positivity here with this going into it. The best advice I can give as far as, on my end doing the negative research, obviously, I did not have the ability to lead on this episode because there is no real negativity to this. This was all you on that positive note, man. It's a testament to what video games can do for you. And more so if, being elderly, picking the right type of video games to help tune in certain skills. And, not even for the elderly, just adults in general. There is something to benefit from every type of game.
Yeah.
Because you will adapt to it. It will help build your skills. The negative on it, if you are looking to cut back on video games, if you do find a problem with your addiction on it, obvious research on doing dopamine detoxes are for you. You should do those to help curb your appetite for your screen time. And a tip that I found that isn't more commonly suggested, which I feel should be because this was crazy to me when I actually thought about it. When you're doing these less pleasant tasks in your life that you typically hide away from while you play video games, or you're replacing that video game time with it, right? Is to play music when you're performing these tasks in real life. Because the music actually will stimulate similar parts of your brain that the video gaming did. So it can help you transition into doing these less pleasant tasks because your brain's getting that additional fulfillment from even just having background music.
I like that tip because it also ties in with this one that I have, the problem of poor hygiene or your health being at issue when it comes to video games. And I'll explain that. Because, for example, if you're into the game like Overcooked, where you're sitting there just cooking things and it's like a lot of things happening at once and you're on a time limit and there's constant rewards and dopamine release that you're getting from it. But then you're hungry, so then you just kind of toss something in the microwave, get 2 minutes out of the way, then eat that, and then go back to playing the video games. You can actually just cook yourself a damn meal, but put some music in the background so then you have that same effect that's going on in your brain to say, oh, this is kind of similar to playing Overcooked. You're getting a nutritious meal out of it.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%, man. You can play that Overcooked soundtrack while you're cooking dinner and be like, yeah, this is the game. And like, you might seem crazy to yourself, but guess what? You're doing it. You're not throwing pizza rolls in the microwave.
Yeah. And it's a pretty good soundtrack also. Overcooked 2 is better.
Is it?
Yeah, soundtrack's pretty cool.
Haven't played it. I don't know. Video games are great. They're fun. We get all kinds of cognitive enhancements throughout our gaming experiences, but don't replace it with real life. Obviously, there is so much to this topic, and we do plan on having some more episodes on this, because as we got on the research, we thought this was going to be a quick and easy thing, and we're just like, this is not going to do justice here.
No.
So as you guys can see, we have a lot of loose ends on this episode. We are going to tie those ends together, but we just want to come out and have a genuine conversation, especially starting this off, and just bring the excitement we have about our research on this to you guys, because we are both avid video game players to begin with.
Pro gamer, no big deal.
No big deal. But like I said, don't replace it with real life. There are some real world skills that are only obtainable in the real world.
In real life, yes.
Go out there, get them. These rewards in video games are great. If you make, 1 million pieces of gold in a video game, that's amazing. But, there comes a point in time where you might want to make $1 million in real life.
Yeah. Or start off with $20,
So either way, you need to go out there and get after it. All this attention to detail and time that you can put into video games, just monitor it. Make sure you're doing it responsibly. Because if you take some of that energy, some of that effort that you put into being better at video games, take that, apply it to your life. Take that extra time to make yourself a better person instead of a better character in a video game, and just watch your life transform. And unfortunately, for as excited as we are about this topic, all great things do have to come to an end. So I want to thank you guys for listening today. Remember to like and share the video. Make sure you follow us at The Motivating Force on Facebook and at Podcast TMF on Instagram. While you're here on YouTube, make sure you subscribe and hit that bell icon if you haven't done so already. That way you'll always be notified when our new videos come out, which is at 8 a.m. EST every Monday and Wednesday. I'd like to leave you guys with a quote from Bertrand Russell, a well-known British philosopher, who said, "The time you enjoy wasting is not wasted time. Now go on and get."